As you can tell, I'm in a hotel, so because I'm always moving around, always traveling, always teaching. Again, my name is Aretha Simons, and as she said, my topic is you started a nonprofit, so now what? And I'm gonna go take it back to the time when I was in the military because that's when I started my first nonprofit. I was on active duty. This was 1997, so 24 years ago. I can't believe every time I say it, I'm like, wow, 24 years ago, I was in the Navy, and I thought about what can I do to make a difference in people's lives? Yes, I was always serving, but I wanted to serve in a different capacity. And so I started my own nonprofit. I wanted it to be a culinary arts job training program because, as you know, we have, she said, multiplying talents. We all have multiple talents. And when I was in the Navy, I took a little cake decorating class, loved it, went to the second class, the third course, and I end up starting a wedding cake business. Yes, while I was in the Navy. I enjoyed it so much, I said, let me go to chef school. So I went to chef school. The Navy was paying for it, so why not? And while I was in chef school, that's when I thought of the concept of having the culinary arts job training program because at the time, chef school was $30,000. Now, remember, this is 24 years ago. So I said there are a lot of people who will never be able to afford to go to chef school. I was blessed to go for free because the military was paying for it. So I started writing down my ideas, my vision, my plan, the concept, the mission, and everything. And once I graduated, I started my own nonprofit. Now, starting the nonprofit is the easy part. That's why tell people you started a nonprofit. Now what? Because doing the paperwork is easy. As she said, I have a 100% success rate. I start doing 501(c)(3)s for other people because it's easy to do. And I know a lot of people say, well, it's not easy to do, it's complicated. I'm saying it's easy to get approved as long as you're doing something educational, religious, charitable, or scientific. So it's easy to get approved, but once you get approved, that's when the real work starts. A lot of people start the real work before they actually get the approval, but is it the real work? Because when you start going out and doing things in the public and the public start noticing, this is what happened to me. The public started noticing what I was doing. Then I was interviewed on TV. And when you're on TV, people think you're big or you're doing something so much more than what you're doing. And so other things start coming to you. And sometimes it comes a little too fast. And when I say that, I didn't have a lot of things in order. I was just doing what I do, which was helping and serving. And to me, that was enough. But it's not enough. Your passion is not enough. You have to have everything in order. You have to have a strategic plan for where you're going to go this year, next year, 3 years from now. And you have to have the right board members. And at the time, I was in the reserve. I got off active duty. I was in the Navy Reserves, and my board wasn't strong. There are people who I had around me that I knew that I could trust and would, protect me, as we say. We don't want nobody kicking us off our nonprofit. All the stuff that we say, all the stuff that I've been hearing over the 20 something years of setting up nonprofits. I started writing my own grants, and people started saying, well, how did you get this money? Where'd you get this from? I was like, it's easy. So I started teaching people how to do that. Again, I was still in the Naval Reserve. Then 9/11 happened. Let me back up before 9/11. I was on TV and I saw another gentleman the next day on TV. He was in Washington, D.C., and I said, oh my God, he's doing something amazing. He was doing the same thing I was doing. He had a community kitchen school. So I contacted him and I said, hey, I'm doing what you're doing, but I'm doing it in Florida. He's like, well, come on up. Let me show you what I'm doing. And, we can just exchange ideas and everything. He was much bigger than I was because he was in DC. So he was right close to where everything was happening, where the money was at. And we stayed in touch. He ended up going on Oprah Winfrey's show. Yeah, the Oprah Winfrey. And she said, well, what do you need? What can I help you with? And he said funding, because that's the biggest thing you need, right? You need funding. You need money to sustain your organization. But he said, I'm not the only one. There are other people. There's an Aretha down in Orlando who's doing the same thing. There's a Maria who's in Oklahoma doing the same thing. So he had kind of mentored about 13 of us. Oprah Winfrey paid for all 13 of us to fly to DC for an entire week, all expense paid. We talked on the Senate floor about issues of hunger. I'd never been on the Senate floor. I've never even talked to, somebody in the Senate before. And it was just an amazing, amazing experience. And so my curiosity, I was like, okay, well, where is this money that you're always talking about with these grants on grants.gov? So I got an opportunity to find out that there's a word called information release is I'm messing up the word, public information release. So basically a nonprofit is a public charity, and so everything is open to the public, right? You approve it as a public charity, and so are the grant information on grants.gov. You can actually get a copy of a grant. That's how a lot of big organizations became the way they did. They got the same grant, they just changed the name. And so I got access to government grants. So I was like, wow, this is interesting. They said, well, you want to be on some grant review boards? So here's my life doing 501c3s, doing grants. Then I start being on grant review boards for the city and United Way and then the federal government. So I got an opportunity to see behind the scenes and, of course, in front of the scenes. Now, again, going back to I got recalled to active duty. I was so glad it happened. I was actually relieved. This was during 9/11. I wasn't happy about 9/11, but I was happy because I was exhausted trying to run a nonprofit, trying to do everything, trying to be everybody, and it was moving way too fast. So you started a nonprofit, now what? You gotta get yourself together because sometimes things will move way fast. And I know sometimes there'll be dream killers because I was a counselor at SCORE for 5 years, and people will come in and say, I want to start a nonprofit, I want to do that. And I know other counselors will be like, well, you can't do that. Well, that's going to take you all this. I never shoot anybody's idea down or their dream because you don't know. Some people have come to me and said, oh, I want to start a nonprofit doing this or that. And they're thinking, future, because we're always thinking future focus. So some people say, I want to alleviate hunger. So I want to have a dome where people, can come and eat when it's cold and get them out of, the rain and things like that. And in my mind, I might be thinking, okay, I know it's going to take you some time to get there, but I never shoot them down. So I tell them, here's the process, and I let them go. Sometimes they use me, sometimes they don't, but I let them go because I have seen people come with big ideas and they've been on Ellen DeGeneres show, they've been on TV, been on news, they have made it. And I'm like, I am so happy that I was not this dream killer. So being on active duty during 9/11, it taught me a lot about myself. It made me sit back, and that's when I wrote my first book, the best guide for nonprofit corporations. Yes, while I was on active duty, I'm walking around with a 9mm and M16 on my back. Got my little green notepad that they give you in the military. If anybody been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. But I would write down things that that I learned in the process, and things that I think people should know, and the way I used to teach my nonprofit workshops and my grant writing workshops. So writing that book allowed me to get those things out. Never knew that book was going to open doors for me once I got out of active duty. Once I got out of active duty, I didn't go back to start my nonprofit because it wasn't my path. So sometimes you will start a nonprofit just to start, just being obedient. How about that? And it may open other doors for you because sometimes that little act of obedience does open other doors for you. And yes, that book opened other doors for me. I was able to teach for the Potter's House, been on Bishop T.D. Jakes' stage for the pastors and leaders, over 10,000 people in attendance, 4 years in a row. And I can go on. I'm traveling right now. Like I said, I was trying to hide the bed. I'm in a hotel, so I move around and still teach, still love this. But my thing is, if you started a nonprofit, one thing I want to tell you is make sure that you have a strong board of directors. I had a lady call me the other day, and she said that she started this nonprofit, and it blessed my heart because a lot of times I want to quit, y'all. I'll be like, I don't want to do this no more. I just don't want to do this no more. But your gift will keep calling you. That's when you know it's a gift because it'll keep calling you. It will not let you go. But this lady, that's my timer. This lady called me and said, hey, I got your book 10 years ago, and now I have this nonprofit. We want to give it up, and my daughter is going to take it over. And I started asking her questions because you have to be careful when you have family members as board members. So there's so many things that you have to consider. If you started a nonprofit, no matter where you are in the journey, if you just started yesterday, if you started 3 years ago, if you started 10 years ago, step back, refocus, and then get your board in order, get your strategic plan in order, and then start from there. And when I say your strategic plan in order, get your 5 year, three to 5 year goals, because most nonprofits that I know are already 3 to 5 years behind. Now I'm in the space of technology. When it comes to technology, most nonprofits are 3 to 5 years behind. That's why I'm so excited with Veronica using AirMeet, because AirMeet is one of those technology platforms, which there are many. She could have chosen to use Zoom, but she chose to use AirMeet today. And this is something, this is probably new to a lot of people. So get your board in order, get your strategic plan in order, and then go after those grants. There are grants for you, but you have to be grant ready. So make sure you're grant ready. And one of the ways that you make sure you're grant ready is your board. That everybody's looking at your board. Have collaboration. Collaboration today in 2020 and beyond is not optional. You have to be working with other people, whether it's a nonprofit or whether it's a church. You have to be collaborating with other people, because funders want to know how you're using their investment. They want to know that they get a return on their investment, because they are making an investment in you. So I'm going to stop right here. I get excited and passionate, and see if there's any questions from Veronica or anyone in the audience.
Yes, thank you so much, Aretha. You gave us so many good nuggets. And what I really took away from you is you said if you want to get those grants, you have to be grant ready. You have to be grant ready. So, quick question: if I do have a nonprofit, or if I'm thinking about starting a nonprofit, why is it kind of hard to get those, to get and find those grants?
Well, it's not hard to find grants, because there are grants out there. You just have to know where to find them. And see, funders don't have time to find you. There's databases on the internet where you have to pay to have access to find the grants, and just make sure you're a right fit for that funder.
Gotcha. One other question. You mentioned the board. You need to have a board that you can collaborate with. How often should you meet with that board?
Well, the rule of thumb is you definitely have to have one meeting. That's the basic answer. But you need to meet as often as possible, because remember, your board is going to help you stay healthy financially. So you need to be meeting as often as possible for fundraising events to discuss multiple things.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. We've started a nonprofit. Now we know what to do. And also, where can we reach you? Where can we
Aretha,
find you?
ArethaSimons.com. Go to my website, ArethaSimons.com, and I have a grant writing success challenge coming up in January. I hope to see you there.
I saw that January 10th through 14th is $47.
Yep.
Join. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for this session. Please stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll jump into our next session.